Today I've put together a make-ahead holiday brunch menu from Gooseberry Patch Old Fashioned Country Christmas. This book was published in 1992, and we'll talk more about it a little bit later. I had so much fun making my holiday brunch video last year that I just had to do it again. But I wanted to give it a little bit of a twist in that it would be something that was very, very easy to plan and make ahead of time. I think the holidays are a great time to try something like this out because maybe you want to get up early on Christmas morning and open presents and have all of the fun festive times, but people are hungry, right? They want breakfast, they want brunch, they want something. You can just kind of swoop in with things ready ahead of time and just, finish everything off. You're almost as good as Santa Claus, right? So I hope you enjoy the recipes that I've decided to try today. So the first recipe I'm going to try is called Cinnamon Nut Loaf, and it's the sweet treat portion of our menu. It does take the longest, I think, to put together, but truthfully, I think you could probably do this even farther ahead of time than just one day. I mean, I don't know how it's going to turn out. It sounds like it's going to be amazing though. Combine brown sugar, nuts, butter, and cinnamon and set aside. So I have 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of chopped nuts. I'm going with pecans because I think cinnamon and pecans they are pretty delightful as a combo. I found that in recent years, I have started to like pecans more. I don't know why. I think it's like the texture of them is a little softer or something. Cinnamon. So I have a teaspoon of cinnamon and then 2 tablespoons of softened butter. So this is kind of a streusely sugary topping that's gonna go on, not on top, in the middle, which I think is like a nice little surprise. I'm gonna just mix that together until it's well combined, and then I'll set it aside. So I am preheating my oven to 325 degrees, so it should be ready by the time I'm ready to pop this in the oven. And the recipe also says to spray a loaf pan with some nonstick spray. I used the kind of nonstick spray that has flour in it, like baking spray. Also, I'm a huge fan of these like USA loaf pans. I bought 2 of these a couple of years ago. They've held up beautifully and I feel like they bake really evenly too. So I'll link those if you are interested in the description down below. So I'm gonna set this prepared pan aside. Cream shortening, sugar, and vanilla. I have 1/2 cup of shortening. This is just Crisco. And then I have 3/4 cup of just plain white sugar here. And what was the other thing? It was the vanilla. I ran out of my little soy sauce dishes I like to use because I prepared all of my ingredients for this menu ahead of time. And one of these is vanilla and one of these is vinegar, so okay, that's the vanilla. I mean, eventually it would be okay because the vinegar is gonna go in the bread too. But I feel like that would just not be a fun thing to mix up in some recipes. And I need to get my hand mixer. I feel like my hand mixer has been working overtime lately with all of these holiday recipes I'm doing, all the cookies and things, even outside of my videos. So I'm gonna cream this together for a couple of minutes. Let's scrape this down. I creamed this for just over 2 minutes and it is very nicely combined. So next I have to add my eggs, and I have to beat the eggs after each addition. That's what we have. So now it's time to move on to our dry ingredients. Brought out another bowl. Yes, it matches the first bowl. Hoping all of these bowls are big enough because it's Christmas. I wanted to use these green ones. Of course I did. Sift flour, baking powder, baking soda, and salt together. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna add a bit of my flour here. This is 2 cups of all-purpose flour. We have 1/2 teaspoon of salt and 1 teaspoon each of baking soda and baking powder. Now I'm gonna sift. Home stretch. We just have a few more ingredients to go. This one does seem a little involved, but I don't know. I just have a really good feeling that it's gonna be tasty. Almost like a coffee cake. I'm not really sure, but I couldn't say no to a cinnamon nut loaf. It sounds very festive. Combine evaporated milk and water. So I have 1/3 cup of water in here, and I have one of the small cans of evaporated milk. That is almost 2/3 cup. So we'll see where we land here. And of course, you could use one of the big cans and just like refrigerate the rest, do something else with it. It was very convenient to get kind of like the size that I needed. Stir in vinegar. I should have gone bigger on this jar. I'm using so many like measuring implements and things because again, I want to do all of this prep in one go. So I have everything sort of like, on my little trays and stuff. And I've used up like most of my liquid measuring cups. Let me just get something else. Let's look in here. If you ever wanted to see my mug collection. This is not all of it either. I have a real problem with mugs. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pour this in here. Shout out to Tommy's, great milkshakes. To this mixture, I need to add a tablespoon of white vinegar. We're making like a sour milk. Okay, yeah, you can feel it. It's thickening up nicely. You can feel it thicken up. Add flour mixture alternately with evaporated milk mixture to creamed mixture. So we're bringing all of these like 3 separate components together finally, so I can bring them all back. So to recap, we have our creamed sugar shortening egg vanilla. We also have all of the sifted flour, baking powder, baking soda, salt. And then we have the evaporated milk, water, and vinegar. So we've got boop, boop, boop. Here we go. Now that I'm really looking at this, it does remind me of like a coffee cake. I'm getting even more excited now. Flour mixture. We're gonna do a little bit of that. Let me get another spoon. Yeah, I know I'm making dishes. People sometimes like to make some comments about the amount of dishes I make, but I do, I have a dishwasher and I hand wash the rest. Like my Pyrex bowls, I don't put those in the dishwasher. You know what? You're not doing them for me. I'm doing them myself. I'm actually gonna go in with like the hand mixer at a low speed to start. We may just eventually switch over to the spatula when it gets a little too thick. I'm gonna do a little bit of this thickened milk mixture. All right, I'm gonna keep alternating and I'll be back to pour this into the pan when it's all combined. Batter is all combined. Oh my gosh, it feels so good. It's very light and fluffy. You can like feel that reaction that happened with the vinegar and the baking soda, and it just made it so puffy and lovely. It does kind of remind me of that 2-person like tiny coffee cake I made in one of my cooking for 2 videos. I'll link that in the description down below if you've not watched it, especially if you like small batch recipes. That's a good one to watch. So I have to take half of this batter, put it into my pan here. I think that is about half, I think. So the next step is to take this wonderful crumbly, sugary pecan brown sugar butter cinnamon mixture and put that on top of this layer. So I'm gonna just crumble that in and distribute it with my hands. I'll show you this before I wash my hands and add the final layer. We're gonna add this last bit of batter. That was a lucky catch on the pan's part. And spread that out. We'll see if I need to get out the old offset spatula, but I'm just gonna try it with a regular one. Nice, I think it looks nice. So I'm gonna bake this in a preheated 325-degree oven. I think it says 45 to 50 minutes. So we'll start with 45 and see what it looks like. Next, I'm preparing this grapefruit slush. I thought it sounded really refreshing, and it's nice and cool and icy. And I love grapefruit, it has a nice tartness to it. This does have quite a bit of honey in it though, so I think it's gonna be both sweet and tart. And I'm gonna just address it. Yes, this is a new stove. And some of my sharp-eyed viewers commented on the fact that we also have a new fridge. There it is. This is a different kind of cooktop as well. It is induction. I cooked Thanksgiving dinner on this, and I cooked also Friendsgiving, so we've done 2 big events. It's been fine so far. Grapefruit slush starts with grapefruit. So I couldn't find the canned grapefruit that this recipe requires. I know it is available, but the 2 stores I went to on the day that I went, they just didn't have it. So I got 2 7-ounce cups of these grapefruit sections in extra light syrup. We're gonna try it with those, okay? We're gonna try it with those. I know I've even made something that required like canned grapefruit on this channel, and I could find it then, but just not now. So we're gonna put our grapefruit sections in there. What's next? This is a very simple recipe. There's only 3 ingredients. It says boil all the ingredients for 5 minutes. So that's our grapefruit sections. I have a cup of water and I have half a cup of honey. And before I measured the honey out, I did spray this measuring cup with a little bit of oil so you can see like it's coming out pretty easily. And I'll just scrape that last bit out with a spatula. So that's all. That's all she wrote. Now I need to bring this to a boil. We're still learning here, folks. All right, as you can see, this has come to a boil. So now I just need to let this boil for about 5 minutes. All right, I have my final dish here, and that is Christmas morn casserole. I am a big fan of breakfast casseroles, especially when you're trying to get ready for like a breakfast or brunch kind of gathering. Christmas morning is kind of like the perfect time for something like this. I've never tried one quite like this before either. I mean, similar, this one has Bisquick in it. So, you know, in some of my Bisquick videos, I've tried kind of like something along these lines, but not exactly this one. This is the only recipe out of the 3 that I'm cutting in half because the full recipe makes a 9x13 pan. That is a lot. That is a lot for us. I'm just gonna do a smaller amount of it. So, of course, a breakfast casserole usually starts with eggs. So I have 3 eggs here. Basically, the instructions are just like mix everything. So I'm gonna beat up these eggs just a little bit before adding everything else. So I'm gonna break up those yolks and get them combined. So I have a couple of ounces, 2 ounces, I did weigh it, of cheddar cheese that I did shred very finely. I have a regular box grater too, but sometimes when I'm just feeling a little lazy, I have a little hand shredder and the holes are very small. I also have a teaspoon of dry mustard and a teaspoon of oregano. Now the sausage, which is the next thing I'm gonna put in, that's very seasoned already. So, you know, at first I was like, oh, there's no like salt or pepper. I mean, breakfast sausage, ground breakfast sausage has a lot of flavor to it. So I'm gonna trust the recipe here. I have 8 ounces of pork sausage, breakfast sausage that I have browned, crumbled up, very small. I'm a little picky about sausage. So I used my little like meat chopper thing to make sure the pieces were pretty small. And then I did let it cool before combining with this because I didn't want, this has to sit overnight. And I didn't want the breakfast sausage to start cooking the eggs if it was hot. I did drain that too. There wasn't a ton of fat on it, but I did drain it. Oh, this is gonna be really interesting. I think it's gonna be a little less eggy than I thought. Huh, okay. So I also have half a cup of Bisquick. I know how much you all seem to love Bisquick because my Bisquick videos do pretty well on my channel. So more Bisquick recipes coming in the future. I've already started planning for 2025. I have a cup of milk here and that's going in. And I think that's our last, yeah, I think I used all the ingredients. So let's get that mixed in. I don't know if I said the right amounts on those seasonings, by the way. I may have given you the full amount. If I didn't say it, half a teaspoon of dry mustard and half a teaspoon of oregano because I'm cutting the recipe in half. Apologies if I messed that up earlier. A lot of breakfast casseroles that I grew up with, we would start with like torn up pieces of bread and then you would make sort of a milk and egg mixture and put your cheese and whatever meat or vegetables or whatever. You could kind of like make up your own combo, which was fun. I have my little baking dish here. I did end up putting a little butter. It didn't say to butter a dish, or grease it. I just thought maybe it would come out a little better if I did that. And because I mixed this in a Cinderella bowl, I've said this before, these little handles are actually pour spouts too. Yeah, I was pretty excited about this bowl and dish combo because these are both Horizon Blue. I would love to have more pieces of Horizon Blue. I just have, with the actual pattern on it, I only have the dish, the little one here, and then I have 2 bowls in this color. That pattern was created to commemorate the moon landing in 1969. I think it's really pretty, I really do. I love this shade of blue. But anyway, this is all I have to do right now, okay? So I've got my mixture in here. I just need to cover this and refrigerate it overnight, and then we'll bake it tomorrow and taste it. So that's actually everything. Debating whether or not I want to show you the loaf. Let's save it. It'll be a surprise tomorrow. You'll see everything tomorrow, see how it turned out. So the main part of my plate here we've got the Christmas Morn Casserole and the Cinnamon Nut Loaf. And then this is the Grapefruit Slush. And I mean, I have a lot to say about how cute and how beautiful it looks in this little dessert dish. Let me grab a fork. I need to try things. Everything, you know, that needed to be baked, like it smelled delicious baking. Let's talk about like bake times and stuff. The Cinnamon Nut Loaf, if I didn't say, because I did prepare it yesterday and I can't remember what I filmed, I ended up baking the Cinnamon Nut Loaf for the full 50 minutes, 50. It did need it. When I tested it at 40, you know, it wasn't quite done yet. So I did bake it for that full amount of time. And then for my Christmas morn casserole, which I pulled out of the refrigerator and baked this morning, that I actually went a little bit less on the time because mine was smaller. If you're gonna bake the whole 9x13 pan of this casserole, you probably will need the full hour. I found that for mine, I did it for like 45 minutes and it was pretty good. I tested it, the knife came out clean. Sometimes you just need to adjust the time a little bit, right? So that's big time wise for those. Before I taste, I think, again, I filmed all of this yesterday because this is a make ahead video, right? I don't know if I left you hanging on the grapefruit slush after I brought everything to a boil. So once you bring all of your ingredients to a boil, you need to let it cool. And then when it's cool, you can pour it into either one big freezer container to freeze it overnight, or if you want to do like individual cups. So in real life, if I were not making this a video, I probably would have done my little 1 cup Pyrex containers that I talked about in my gift video, my gift guide. But I wanted to scoop it into this dessert dish because I have exactly one of these, and any chance that I get to use it in a video, like I'll take it, right? Okay, now I get to taste everything and I'm very excited. It is about lunchtime here, so this is all gonna be my lunch, right? So I made this loaf first. I'm gonna try it first. Okay, smells cakey. That is very nice. It's not quite coffee cake-ish, I wouldn't say. The texture is a little bit different. It's very good though, it's very good. The outside almost reminds me of like a pound cake, but then you get that like cinnamon and pecan mixture. It's very tasty. I think it would be great with a cup of tea. And in fact, I'm probably gonna freeze the rest of it in individual slices and just kind of like take one out when I need to, right? Now I'm gonna go for the Christmas morn casserole, which I just baked. I did let it cool for about 15 minutes. So it's just kind of been sitting on my counter beckoning me, and I'm very excited. Inside looking good. It tastes really good. And the texture is pretty interesting. It's like, you can tell, I think it's because of the biscuit. It has almost like a biscuity quality to it. I like that a lot actually. And really, I'm not usually one to go for breakfast sausage in a casserole. I'm more like a hammer of bacon, but this one is very good. And it does have a lot of flavor. I think I mentioned yesterday when I was putting it together, there's not like salt or pepper in it. The sausage takes care of it, believe me. So that brings us to this one. And I'm supposed to pour some ginger ale over it before I serve it. I have Diet Vernors. I'm a Vernors gal. I'll just drink the rest of the Vernors with my lunch. Grapefruit and ginger does sound good together. So when we lived in California, we actually drove back for Christmas that particular year, and I took back a case of Vernors because I couldn't find it. That is how much I love it. Okay, I should get a spoon. I'm just gonna use this fork though. Oh, also the maraschino cherry, like not part of the recipe, okay? But it's very festive and I happen to have them on hand, and I think it looks really cute with the grapefruit. You know, like you would eat half a grapefruit with a cherry on top. That is just as I thought it would be. A little tart, a little sweet, super refreshing. I don't think this is just for Christmas because I think this would be so good in the summertime. Make like individual cups of this and then like serve it to your friends. Any time of year really, but like it is very cool and refreshing. That was a super enjoyable menu, not just to put together, but also to eat. I think all three were really good recipes that are pretty quick to put together ahead of time. And then you just kind of do the last minute prep and you get to be the hero on Christmas morning. Or Gooseberry Patch Old Fashioned Country Christmas was published in 1992. And I did specifically buy this book months ago because I wanted to do this video. And the reason I chose this very book is because this is the very first cookbook that was published by Gooseberry Patch. I think this one is a second printing, yes. So the first printing was released in July of 92. This one was released in October of 1992. I think some of you out there probably are already familiar with Gooseberry Patch, but if you're not, they are a company that is based in Columbus, Ohio. So, you know, Ohio shout out. They were founded in 1984, and it actually started out as more of like a catalog with gift and decor items. They didn't publish their very first cookbook until 1992, and then eventually they phased out the catalog with the items, the gift items, and they switched just to publishing books, and I think specifically cookbooks now. So I have cooked from at least one Gooseberry Patch cookbook on my channel, Super Fast Slow Cooking, which is one of my very favorite slow cooker cookbooks. I did a little digging around just to find out a little bit more information on which book was first, and it was this one. The plaid cover and then this green spine. Red and green are always Christmassy, but something about this one is very 1992 and I love it. So the first half of this book, it's not recipes. Like the whole thing isn't just recipes. This also contains things like stories, poems, verses, ideas. So decorating ideas and gift ideas and just, you know, things to make your life easier around the holidays. It also has a lot of really nice illustrations, very detailed. Black and white and red, you know, I love those like tricolor kinds of things. The previous owner of my book actually did highlight a few things in pink, and that's fine. I love when a cookbook that I purchased for my collection has been previously loved. So let's maybe just like take a look at some of these things in here. There's some long ones. Let me find a few that I can just read off to you quickly. This little gem: simmer some cinnamon oil diluted with water. It gives a wonderful Christmas smell. And that came from Cindy Ricky, I think. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. So most of the ideas and the recipes in the Gooseberry Patch books are crowdsourced. So people send them in, you know, and then they choose the best ones and they publish them in the cookbook. And I know at least one person in a Facebook group that I'm in that's about cookbooks, they've had some of their recipes published in these books. So that's kind of cool and exciting. To freshen up mashed bows, use a curling iron. I've not tried that one. Place sprigs of Christmas tree into old potpourri for a fresh holiday fragrance. Potpourri was very big in the late 80s, early 90s, probably through like the late 90s too. We definitely had little things of like potpourri sitting around, and you could get like simmer pots going with potpourri. You know, just give your house a nice scent. Ooh, this is a good one. Meatloaf will not stick to the pan if you place a slice of bacon on the bottom of the pan before baking. And that was Laverne, if you're out there, I'm so sorry, but I'm thinking it's Bayuno, maybe. That's a good idea, you know, and I think it probably gives the meatloaf a good flavor too. There's just like tons of these, so many pieces of advice. And then we start in on like a gift section. So homemade gifts, Christmas pine cones, Christmas potpourri. We love that potpourri. Homemade stationery, mantle decorations, inexpensive gift wrap. Oh, the pine cone bird treat. Did you ever make one of these? I sure did when I was a kid. This one involves breadcrumbs and peanut butter. I always did you take a pine cone and you spread some peanut butter on it, and then you sprinkle that with bird seed and you can hang it outside, and then it's a little treat for your birds, right? I remember making those for sure. Recipes for spicy gingerbread ornaments, cinnamon ornaments, salt dough ornaments. So you can actually make your own Christmas decorations using some of these ideas as well. So, you know, this book isn't just full of recipes, it has a lot of other good stuff in it. So I think I bought this over the summer. I had fun really just like flipping through this and trying to work up some ideas and think about what I was going to be doing for Christmas. Just a good thing to look at. Oh, look at this Santa. I like him. And this is the intro to the holiday open house chapter. You know, we've got the mugs with the mulling spice, cinnamon sticks. Ooh, a cheese board. I'm going to this place. That is kind of where the recipes begin. So it's about halfway through the book. So I was really able to go through and pull together a full menu without them having to like put one together for me. It was pretty easy. So in my imagination, this bear is wearing like a country blue plaid dress, I think. Ooh, this is fun too. You gotta see that. This is another intro to another chapter. And then you'll notice it says to Joanne from Vicky. So Joanne and Vicky are actually the founders of the company. Let's see if this will show up in camera. That's them. It has a photograph on the back of the book. And you know, you can still find a lot of different Gooseberry Patch cookbooks out there today. They are publishing new ones, but also, you know, I see whenever I go to Half Price Books, I see an entire shelf of them. So they're not tough to find. I did order this one. I think I got it on eBay because I wanted Very specifically this book. I wasn't seeing it in a store or anything. I think later editions of this book had more of a colorful illustration on the front, and I really wanted that like sort of black, white, red, green. That was what I wanted. So happy to add it to my collection. Let's talk about the recipes I chose for my menu today. I was really happy with this. I tried to choose recipes that I thought would be easy and fairly quick to put together even ahead of time, because the holidays, you know, at this time of year, you're very busy, not just with like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or whatever other holidays are going on. You have a lot of gatherings. You have a lot of like maybe Christmas pageants or whatever you like to do at this time of year. Maybe you go caroling. I don't. I've never been caroling in my life, but I do like to look at Christmas lights and visit people and all that stuff. So even for a make ahead menu, I did want to make it pretty quick and pretty easy to put together. Especially 2 out of the 3 recipes were incredibly simple. Like the simplicity of the ingredients, there wasn't like a ton to them, but they did yield really good results. The loaf, of course, had a few more things, but truthfully, like that stuff, I think I make a lot of baked goods, so I had everything on hand already. It was a very good recipe for me to make because, you know, if you're already doing Christmas baking, you probably have all that stuff. So we'll start with the cinnamon nut loaf because I did make that first. It is from Julie Allen. So hi, Julie. You're probably not watching. I do like to call out the names sometimes when I'm working with recipes like this, just in case maybe someone knows that person or that person is watching. It's never happened, not yet. I think I had one person who like knew the person who submitted the recipe to, but I've never had that person come and like comment or anything like that. It'd be really cool though. Anyway, Julie, thank you. Thank you for your cinnamon nut loaf. This was very tasty. I feel like every Christmas brunch or every, you know, breakfast in that kind of special occasion way usually has some kind of baked good or sweet treat, something like that. Last year I made, what were they? They were delicious. It was like crescent rolls with almond. It's gonna drive me crazy. I don't know. I'll put the name of them here because it's just not coming to my mind, but they were very good. So this year I wanted to do something that I could definitely make ahead of time that would taste good the second day, if not, you know, a few days later. And this really fit the bill. So I did refer to it as bread in the video a couple of times. That's me. That's just a me thing because it's in a loaf pan. So I'm thinking like banana bread, zucchini bread. This was not like a quick bread necessarily. This was definitely more of a cake, and that's probably why it's called a loaf. It wasn't quite like the coffee cakes that I have made in the past. The texture was very moist. The outer edge was a little bit like a pound cake in a good way. It wasn't like overly browned, but it did have like kind of a barrier to it. I don't know if that's the right word. And then you had those little surprise bits of pecan, cinnamon, sugar, you know, throughout. Not overpoweringly sweet though. At this time of year, we do get a lot of delicious homemade candies and cookies and things like that. And those, I mean, I love them, right? I did a whole cookie video. But for breakfast, you just maybe want a little something that's kind of sweet, but maybe not in your face. So let's see, I had some today, like as a dessert for my lunch. So I made this, I actually baked this 2 days ago at this point, and it is still very delicious. I just have it wrapped in foil and I haven't stored it in the fridge thus far, but I think I'm gonna slice the rest of it up and then like freeze those individual slices. I think it's gonna freeze really well, but I haven't had a chance to try that out yet. It's gonna be great with a cup of tea in the afternoon, I think. In Ohio, the winter, it can be long sometimes, so that afternoon cup of tea is a real treat, and I think it's gonna be an even bigger treat if I have a few slices of this cinnamon nut loaf waiting for me in the freezer. I did use the full bake time. It really did need it. You might even need to, depending on your oven, let it go a little bit longer. I'm working with a new oven, folks. If you didn't catch that, we got a new stove and we got a new fridge. So I'm still learning. You get used to one appliance and then you get a new one and maybe it's a little bit of a learning curve, but the full bake time was what I went with here and it worked just fine. I used pecans. You could use whatever nuts that you want. You may even be able to leave out the nuts, but honestly, like then it's just kind of like a yellow cake. Maybe chocolate chips, actually. I'm thinking chocolate chips would be great in this. Maybe we'll try it with that in the future. So the second recipe I prepared was grapefruit slush. And I am familiar with like fruit slushes because I live sort of close to like the Mennonite community and Amish community. That's like a very popular recipe that you'll see a lot in community cookbooks from this area. My husband's grandma actually does make a fruit slush a lot of times like around the holidays, and she'll just keep individual cups in the freezer. Hers involves more like varied kinds of fruit. This was just grapefruit. I loved it. Very simple. It just has grapefruit sections, like canned grapefruit sections, honey and water. That's it. I guess the ginger ale is not included in that ingredients list, but I think you can probably eat it without the ginger ale if you don't have any or you don't like it. I love it. Thought it was a really good compliment to this particular recipe. Ginger and grapefruit. Slightly sweet, very refreshing. I kept saying, like, that is the word for this. It was refreshing. Cool, crisp. Some other words you can use to describe it. Great with this menu, but also I think I would be making this during the summer too. Probably putting it in individual cups to just kind of enjoy. In this case, I wanted to use my little dessert dish, my little pedestal kind of dish there. So I chose to put it in a bigger container and just scoop it out. Of course, I had to garnish it with a little maraschino cherry because it's Christmas after all. You need that little bit of festivity as much as possible. Tart, crisp, refreshing. I can't stop saying refreshing. If you make this, like, you'll see what I mean. And then finally, the main dish, the main event of this menu, Christmas Morn casserole. I believe a lot of you have probably had various breakfast casseroles. You probably have your own recipe that your family likes. I love a breakfast casserole because they're meant to be made ahead of time and then baked later. You know, it just makes it so easy. You can throw everything together and then worry about finishing it off the next day or what have you, or later in the day. This one was a little bit different than the ones that I grew up with or the ones that I've had before because it has Bisquick in it. There's like 6-7 ingredients, including the seasonings in this. It's, you know, pretty simple stuff. You don't have to do anything too complicated. It's just like mix all of this together and pour it in a baking dish. Love that. Love that. Now, with the Bisquick, you might expect that this is kind of like an impossible pie or an impossible casserole or whatever. It wasn't. The Bisquick didn't kind of like go to the bottom of the dish to form a crust at all. It really incorporated into the whole mixture and just kind of gave it a little bit more heft. I don't know. It was eggy because it's made of eggs, but it did have kind of like a biscuity quality to it that I really enjoyed. I had some of that yesterday for my lunch. That's when I baked it. I had a square of it this morning for breakfast because I wanted to see how well it reheated. It reheated well in the microwave. When I'm reheating like a breakfast casserole, I do like to cut it up into kind of like cubes beforehand, just because I think it gives it a chance to heat a little bit more evenly in the microwave. You can kind of mix it up and stuff like that. Very delicious. I was so looking forward to breakfast this morning because I already knew that I had that ready in the fridge. This also had sausage in it. I've mentioned before, like, I'm not like a huge fan of breakfast sausage. Like, we were a bacon family, I guess. We didn't do a lot of like breakfast sausage. I used, I think it was just like Bob Evans, like breakfast sausage. And I chopped it up really small as I was cooking it and it was perfect. It must be something like texturally for me. Like if there's big chunks or something, I don't care for it as much. But because I chopped it up so small, and it really just like mixed in with everything else in such a good way. It gave a lot of good flavor to this. You could probably swap out for other meats if you want, but just keep in mind that the original recipe with the pork sausage, like that already is very seasoned. So if you're gonna swap something else in, you might need to adjust the seasonings a little bit. You could probably also add some vegetables to this. Vegetables give off moisture, so you may want to cook them a little bit beforehand just to kind of like get rid of some of that, because otherwise with the extra moisture, it might change the texture of the casserole a little bit or increase the bake time or something like that. Also, the full recipe serves about 10 people. So that's a good amount. If you're gonna make my whole menu, I think you're gonna have a lot of happy people, happy guests on your hands. Overall, I had such a good time cooking from this cookbook. Some early 90s Christmas vibes. I was 11 years old when this was originally published. If you can find a copy, I would encourage it. There's a lot of good recipes in here. Even though only about half the book is recipes, they're good ones because it's a crowdsourced book. And a lot of times when you're submitting a recipe to something like this, you're gonna give your best stuff, okay? You wanna make a good showing. So I am guessing that a lot of the other recipes in here are excellent as well. I hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. I hope you're enjoying yourself, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.